to my channel. Today I am so excited about this palette. Anastasia Beverly Hills just collaborated with Jackie Aina and she created this beautiful palette. I love the outside of this, you guys. I love the packaging. I love the print. I love the holographic glitter moment with the rose gold of her name. It's just so beautiful. I'm obsessed. And for those of you guys that don't know, many of you guys probably already know this, but for those that don't, I am a huge Jackie Aina fan. I've loved her channel for a really long time. I don't really follow a lot of larger influencers, but she is definitely one of them. I was so excited to see her collaborate with ABH, and this is a huge moment. Like, this is a big moment that a woman of color was able to collaborate with Anastasia Beverly Hills. They've never collaborated with anybody of a deeper skin tone, and I just feel like this is just such a monumental moment in the beauty industry, and I am so incredibly proud of her. And it kind of gets me emotional just because, oh my gosh, Tara, stop it. What is wrong with you? I'm an emotional mess right now because my son's going to college tomorrow and it's just a bad moment, okay? I'm just having a moment. So it's stuff, I'm a little emotional, but I just think it's an amazing opportunity and such a monumental moment, and I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but I am just incredibly proud of her and just incredibly happy to see this. Like, when I heard this, I was just completely stunned. It's just amazing, and I cannot be more proud of her. She's worked really hard, because you guys got to understand that women of color influencers have to work much harder than those who have a darker or a lighter skin tone. It just is what it is. And she's worked really hard to get here, and knowing how hard it is for me to work, and I just have a small little channel, I cannot even imagine the work that she had to put in to get where she's at. Whether you like her or you don't, you have to give her credit where credit is due, and she's worked really hard. This is huge, you guys. In my opinion, it's huge. So congratulations, Jackie. Not that she'll ever watch this, but congratulations, because this is major, and I am so happy. Oh my gosh, stop it. Seriously. So this is what the palette looks like. This palette retails for $45 on the Anastasia Beverly Hills website. Now, this is a limited edition eyeshadow palette, so I want to make that very clear. This is limited edition. This will be available on August 15th online and in stores at Sephora and at Ulta. So if you guys are interested and you would rather look at it in person, August 15th, it will be in stores. So that's what we're going to be playing with today. Now, I created 3 different looks with this palette, and originally I wanted to first go after these 2 shades because, as you guys know, I love me a peachy gold shade. Like, I'm obsessed with this shade right now. I'm living for it, you guys. It is so pretty. But I decided not to kind of slip into my rose gold peachy tone habits. I'm trying to be a little bit more creative. My creative, okay, give me a break. For me, it's creative. I created 3 different eyeshadow looks using this palette, and then I also compare it to some of the other ABH palettes that I have in my collection as far as like swatches and stuff. And then I give you guys my full final thoughts at the end of the video. So for your convenience, I will leave timestamps in the description box down below so you guys can skip ahead to the parts that you guys want to see. So without further ado, let's jump right into the tutorials. I'm going to first go into the shade Soleil right here. I'm going to use that as a highlighter. So I'm going to take my brush and kind of dip in there. And the reason why I'm using this highlighter is because it's got a peachy undertone and it's not going to be ashy. And I'm like, right now I'm a little bit more tan. So some of the highlighters that I have besides the Amrezy kind of get a little bit ashy on my skin. So I thought this would be the perfect shade to use as a highlighter. So now that we got that done, but look how beautiful. And I'm going to be honest with you, the layout of the palette kind of makes my brain freeze. The layout of the palette, because the way the shades are laid out, it's kind of hard for me to be creative. I struggle with that. So I have creative blocks. And when it comes to eyeshadow palettes, if they're not laid out in a certain way, it's very hard for me to be creative. Like, I'm a little bit blocked right now. But we're just gonna kind of play around. I'm gonna do one look on this eye, one look on this eye, and go from there. Well, so I might use a few of my brushes, but the main brush I'm gonna use is from the actual palette. And I'm gonna go into the shade Credit. Oh, she's pigmented. Typical ABH, very pigmented. Now I'm gonna kind of wipe that brush off just because there was a lot of pigment on it. And I'm gonna kind of use the brush to kind of blend that out. And I'm just gonna kind of do some circular motions just to kind of break it up. I need my regular brush. I'm just having problems with it being patchy, and I think it's because of my brush. All right, I'm gonna dip back in just a little bit. That shade is very dark, so it's definitely true to pigment. So just be careful with it. I have this little line right here that I want to buff out. So I'm going to use the tip of this that doesn't have any product on it and kind of try to buff that out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to use that end of it and kind of put some right here on this outer corner. But I need to kind of add a little bit more to that tip to kind of break up that line. I might have to go into a lighter color. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to take that tip of the brush and bring this on the lower lash line. That shade is so pigmented. Holy smokes. I'm sorry if you're hearing some outside interference. I have a house full of people. We're getting ready to leave town and take my son to move him into his college apartment. So my mom is here, my mother-in-law's here, and they're right above me in the kitchen, and so they're being really loud. So I apologize for that. Okay, so this kind of went a little bit darker than I was envisioning in my mind, just because that shade is very, very dark. I'm gonna grab this shade just in my KKW Beauty Classic palette and take that on a fluffy brush and kind of break that up a little bit because I can't get that to blend out. Like, it is just not blending out. So that definitely lightened it up just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into the shade Lituation. I've never heard of the term lituation. Let's find out what it means. Hey Google, what does lituation mean?
According to OnSmash, on the surface, a lituation means when a situation gets lit.
Okay, cool. We are getting lit up in this bitch, okay? I'm gonna take my felt tip applicator and I'm gonna go into lituation. It's super pigmented and very beautiful. So beautiful. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, I want to add a little bit of fun to it. So I'm going to go into the shade Trust Issue on the other side of the felt tip applicator. And I'm going to pop that. I'm going to pop that right on this part. But I kind of like that yellow over top of it, just especially to kind of grab the light when you close your eyes. So I love that. I think that is so beautiful. Now on the other eye, okay, I think I'm going to first start out with the shade Ginger. I'm going to put a little bit of ginger right here and start kind of building this up. Now I'm going to take this part of the brush and I'm going to go into Ginger. Kind of place this here on this outer corner. And then I'm going to go into Edges and I'm going to softly kind of bring that right here in the crease just to really deepen that up a little bit and add some richness to that first shade. Do the same thing on the lower lash line. I'm going to just go into Ginger first. Then I'm going to take a brush like this and I'm going to go into Edges and I'm going to tight line with that shade right there at the base of my lashes. Now I'm going to go into that shade Dwellas because I love the name of it and I want that green on the eye. Like, I think that green would be so beautiful. Oh yes, it's so pretty. Oh my gosh. That green is gorgeous. So pretty. Jackie, you did that. That green is perfection. So I'm gonna take the stubby end of this brush. I'm gonna go back into ginger, kind of buff out this edge right here. And just kind of make sure it's blended. And then I'm gonna go into edges and just add that depth right back to it. Okay, so this is the first eye, and I'm not gonna add any mascara or anything just because I'm gonna wipe this off and do the third look. And I have a couple of other videos to film. I never would have thought I would put orange with green like that, but that is so beautiful. It complements that green eye so beautifully. Like, I just love this. I think it's so pretty, and I feel like this will be so beautiful for the fall time, like September-ish. And then this purple eye, I am living for. You know, I did struggle a little bit, but I feel like I got it blended fairly well. And I was able to kind of calm it down a little bit because it was just a very explosive of a shade, which is very typical for ABH. And I love this. So I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this off and we will do look number 3. Okay. Here we go with look number 3. I just wiped everything off, put concealer back on, and set it with some powder, and we are good to go. Okay, I'm gonna first go into edges, and I'm gonna concentrate this kind of more on the lighter side, so I lightly dipped, and I'm just gonna use that to kind of work it in. If you don't want the color to kind of overwhelm, then just lightly go in, because these shadows are very pigmented. Now I'm gonna go into this part of the brush that comes into the palette, and I'm gonna go into the shade Credit, and very so slightly, I'm gonna kind of create a little bit of that V with that color, and then tie it right in right here. And then start kind of buffing it out. That shade I struggle with because it keeps making that line and then it's really hard to buff it out. And it makes that line exactly in that same spot, like every stinking time. I'm gonna go back into edges and pop that back over top just to kind of bring it back to life with that dark shade. Go into the shade Sponsored. Now, of course, I could use the Soleil and the Zam. I use those shades all the time. I'm trying to kind of get out of my comfort zone and not use the shades that I gravitate to when I look at this palette, the first 2 shades I want to put on my lid is the Soleil or the Zam. So I want to kind of pull away from that for a second and I kind of want to just play, you know? I'm going to go into edges really fast and put a little bit of that on the lower lash line. I'm going to take this brush and tightline with the shade Credit, but keeping it right here on this outer corner. Now I'm going to take the felt tip applicator and I'm going to go into that shade Sponsored. So beautiful. Oh, that's so freaking beautiful. Now I'm going back in with edges and kind of wrapping it around the edge of the crease just to kind of add that definition back and make sure that I don't lose it. Now I wiped out the brush and I'm just gonna buff and like blend that edge out. Okay, and then I'm gonna go back in to Credit so lightly, like very lightly, and place it here on this outer corner just to give that depth. For the inner corner, I'm going to go into Soleil, the first shade. And I'm also placing a little bit of that Soleil right there in that inner corner just to kind of make that inner corner kind of like that gradient into the green. Oh my gosh, this is so freaking pretty. So this is the final look. For my lip, I used the KKW Beauty Eye Liner, which I'm using it as a lip liner or whatever. And it's in the shade Rust. And then I put on this from MAC. It is their lip gloss. And this one is in the shade Candy Box. Any red lip liner and any like nice, just a normal pink gloss. This is what it looks like. Like this. It's like a bubblegum pink with a red lip liner. Perfect for this look. I love this eye look and I think it's very creative, something definitely out of my comfort zone, but very beautiful, and I'm so excited about it. Okay, so let me get into my final thoughts about this palette. I think this palette is really beautiful. Though I didn't use every shade of the palette, I kind of have a feeling that they don't change their formula all that much. Like, it seems like since the Subculture fiasco, they've been really consistent with all of their formulas in the way that they apply, the way that they perform. And this one, in my opinion, is no different. I talked about this during my tutorial, but this layout is very hard for me. I think that's what made the palette not that attractive to me. I bought this palette for two reasons. Number one is to support Jackie Aina. So even though I didn't have my channel, I would buy the palette just to show her some love and support. But number two, I wanted to review it for you guys and kind of play around with it. Personally, I feel like the shades are just a little bit kind of, I don't really like the layout of the palette. I was very honest about that when I first created the first tutorial. I just feel like this palette is one of those palettes where you have to be creative in order to fall in love with this, in order to be able to use it. Now, of course, my first instinct was to go into like this shade and maybe put this on the lid. Like, you could buff this on the crease, put this on the lid, because like a beautiful rose gold. As you saw in all the swatches, like, it's a beautiful palette, but it's just very hard to be creative in it. The way that the palette is laid out, like, I would have put some of the purples next to each other. Like, this shade right here is kind of over here on the end, but it just, like, none of this matches to me. Like, none of the shades go together for me the way that it's laid out. It's so sporadic that it's hard for me to be creative. So in my opinion, that's kind of the negative, which at the end of the day stops me from using it. So if you're like me and you have creative blocks like that, this is probably going to be one that I'm not going to pick up and use that much. And I hate to say that, but it's just one of those, the way that it's laid out, it's very hard for me to be creative in it. I do love the shades. I think the shades are beautiful, and I love the eye look that I created with it. I think it's super fun. All three of the looks were very fun, kind of out of my comfort zone. And like I said during the tutorial, this palette is unique in a sense that it was developed by Jackie Aina for women of color. And so even though the shades are not wild, they have a lot of depth in them. So if you're lighter skinned or medium skin toned, just be very, very careful with them because they're so deep that they will overtake the look if you're not careful. But for those of you who are, you know, darker skin tone, you are going to love the depth in this palette. In my personal opinion, I think that's what makes this palette stand out above some of the other palettes that I have. Is just the depth of the shades. Like even like this shade, like none of these shades in here are lighter. They're all like deep toned. And even though some of them are warmer, neutral, cooler toned, whatever it is, it has depth. And I really appreciate the way that she created these shades to accommodate women of, you know, a darker skin tone. So I love it for that, and I think this is a phenomenal palette. If you're like fair or like a light medium, this might be one, unless you love all the shades, then this might be one that you might want to be very cautious. If you do buy it, just go in lightly and go in with a light hand because these are very pigmented shadows. And like I said, they just have a lot of depth. So I like the palette. I think if you're interested in getting it, I don't think you're going to be disappointed if it is something that you're interested in. But I do know that not everybody is interested in it. And a lot of you, I've heard, kind of have that same creative block like I do. It just doesn't really look that appealing because of the way that the shades are laid out. But again, that's all based on an individual basis, and we're all different, and we all need something different from our eyeshadow palettes. So that's it for the video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you guys again for all the love that you guys show me and my channel. It means the world to me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day filled with love and joy. I will see you guys in my next video. Love you. Bye.